June is the Pride Month, which is celebrated all around the world. It's a month during which our cities are decorated with rainbow colors and host joyful events. These celebrations, however, should not make us forget the struggles that LGBTQI persons still go through. This is why the theme of this year's Pride in New York City is "The Fight Continues." Most of the LGBTQI people struggle, but some have to struggle more than others. Some even had to flee their country for being LGBTQI person. Today, we invited two artists, a singer, Regina Elisabeth King, and a dancer, Marvin Drummond, who are refugees and are now part of the LGBTQI community in New York City. We also are happy to have with us Mr. Filippo Grandi, UN High Commissioner for Refugees, and Ambassador Silvio Gonzato, European Union Deputy Head of Delegation in New York, to have a conversation with Regina and Marvin about their life stories and the challenges they had.
It's really great to be here with Regina, Marvin, to talk about these things. Now, I represent here the United Nations organization that deals with refugees worldwide, 80 million of them. These are people, as we know, that flee from their homes, from their countries, because of war, because of persecution, because of discrimination and violence. And increasingly, in many parts of the world, we see people that flee because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And these people too need and deserve what we call protection. Now, I think it is fantastic that we can hear from one of these people, one of the people from the LGBTQI community that has gone through this experience and has a real important life story to share with us. So, Regina, I would like you to share with us a bit about your experience. How did it start? How did it happen? And how did you find yourselves here in the United States?
First of all, I didn't always identify as Regina. I only became Regina when I came to the United States. But going back to my life in Guyana as a trans woman, I have faced rampant discrimination and violence on many occasions. And I just didn't have anyone to turn to. And because I've been at the bottom of the scale and always had to deal with violence and attacks because of who I am, I was always very scared and always running and trying to find a place that I can call home and I can feel safe. But those challenges are not unique only to me because I have a first-hand knowledge of what it is. One night I was at a party singing because I love to sing, and there was this guy outside of the party, lowered me out of the party, and he told me that I was a disgrace and I had to be killed. And he took a knife out and he stabbed me on my shoulder, and I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the police, I couldn't go to the hospital because I was being laughed at. I was basically a mockery. But the United States have always shown that it was welcoming to people of all genders, race, whoever you love. So I always knew that I had to come here. So I flee, and I came to the United States in 2014 and was represented by Immigration Equality.
And indeed, like you said, this type of threat, it is not just discrimination, it is really your life that is at risk.
Correct.
You can be killed, and many people are killed because of that. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about how the flight happened, how the getting out of Guyana and into the US happened, because this is, of course, something that happens to thousands of people in Africa, in the Middle East, in Europe, in all parts of the world, in fact. It would be interesting to understand, for everybody to understand, what is the real life experience of somebody who flees because of this.
Well, basically, I lived two lives. I was Roger, and I was Regina. So whenever I present myself as Regina, I was always told, no, we can't help you. So I decided to present myself as Roger to get a visa to come to the United States. So I grew my beard, my moustache, and I went into the embassy and I told them that I was married and I just needed a vacation. And guess what? I'm in the United States. So it's basically a process, and it doesn't mean because the United States is welcoming to all people. It means that a person presenting as transgender would be easily allowed to come into the United States. So I had to make a sacrifice to change who I am, change my expression, change everything about myself in order to get my foot into the door, so to speak.
This is really an important story because it shows how much refugees have to compromise and struggle to find safety. You know, refugees are so stigmatized, demonized all over the world because people don't understand the life experience that they have to go through to find refuge, to find protection. Maybe as a last question, can you tell us a bit more what it means now? You are Regina now in the United States.
Well, I would say that it means everything to me because the United States have given me a chance to live my life openly and authentically as myself, as Regina Elisabeth King. And nothing is beyond my reach. At least that's how I feel now in my life. Whereas back in Guyana, I didn't feel that. I was shut out of the society, disfranchised, and my voice was just cut because I've never been given the chance. So that's what it means to me to be here. I am free, I am safe, and I'm proud of who I am, because that's all we want. We just want to be safe and to be free, to live as who we are.
So thank you, Regina. Filippo was talking about discrimination as one of the challenges that refugees face, but in particular also LGBTQI people. And the fight against discrimination, I think, is at the very heart of the policies of the European Union. So I would like to, see from your experience I want you to tell us, also see how we as European Union can provide more support to people like you. But first, let's hear your story, Marvin.
For me, my situation wasn't unique. Being in a country that is very homophobic and very dangerous towards, gay people, I knew I had to flee. I've always been effeminate, and I always knew that I was special, and I knew that I didn't belong because all my life, growing up, I had to isolate. And I was very unique, but I knew that Jamaica wasn't for me. And I've seen, my friends died in front of me. I've seen how the slurs they say to someone wearing tight pants or someone, just being themselves. I knew I had to get out, and I've always loved the performing arts, and being a dancer in Jamaica, I've always been bashed. I've always been told, oh no, you need to do football, you can't do ballet, boys don't do ballet. And I never had the family support I needed. And it really took away from me. Sometimes I had to hide in the basement and go on the YouTube and learn all the dance moves. And when I was given the chance to represent my country in the performing arts in LA, I knew that this was the perfect opportunity for me to flee. Because I didn't want to be in a country where I was no longer accepted, where I was fearful of my life, where every night that I walk on the street, it's either someone throwing stones or, I was threatened by text messages. So I knew that this opportunity was the perfect opportunity. And when I came here, I was super excited. I know it wasn't going to be easy, but after LA, I auditioned for Garth Fagan in Rochester. I got accepted, and that's how I kind of built my life from there. And then I came to New York, and I met Immigration Equality, who is an amazing organization who have done go beyond, and there's no words to describe how amazing they are to the LGBTQ community and to me, and I'm really grateful and I'm humbled, and I will always forever be grateful for this opportunity, and I'm really thankful.
So you had the chance because you were performing, and so you could travel outside of your country, and then you had the opportunity to stay on, and then move to New York and find your place here, presumably. But people who cannot do this, who cannot travel abroad, what kind of help can we give to them, and what kind of support can we offer to get them out of this plight, you think?
If there is organizations in their country that are LGBTQ, I would recommend for them to get as much information as they can. If they have friends in the States, I would say communicate with friends in the States, write letters, communicate, go on the Instagram, just find out a lot about, people like me and Regina who have experience, find out from us what it was like, what the things that they need to do.
So you came to New York, you love dancing, but then COVID came about, and that must have been a huge setback.
Yeah. COVID was definitely a setback. I've lost some friends as well, and I'm so thankful now that we are moving forward and that we can get to a better place. For me, nothing ever stops. Once you have life, that's all that matters. You never stop. So for me, I went to the parks when needed. I do ballet in the parks. I take a walk. I do ballet in my apartment. I move around a little bit just to stay active, but also stay very focused and both mentally and physically.
Well, Regina and Marvin, thank you so much for coming to see us today, and we look forward to you sharing your talent with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So Aaron, both Regina and Marvin told us how important the support given by your organization, Immigration Equality, was for their arrival here in New York, their integration into New York, the start of a new life. So we heard about their challenges, but what are your challenges as organization working here in the United States?
Well, it's, some of the beautiful parts of the U.S. Asylum system is that being a queer identified person is a fundamentally protected human right here. The hard part is that our system often requires a lawyer to represent an individual. And so our whole model is to make sure that every queer person who is seeking safety in the U.S. has that support, because often the U.S. government hires a government attorney to oppose that person's case and to convince an immigration judge to deport them.
You assist legally, if I understand correctly, asylum seekers from the LGBTQI community. Do they have specific challenges in making their case in the United States?
The first is that in the U.S., if you come to the U.S. and you present yourself at the border as a refugee, we will often detain that individual. And the detention system in the U.S. is rampantly disgusting. And it is dangerous for all people, and particularly for people who are LGBTQ and people living with HIV. And so we're working really hard with, and sometimes against, the Biden administration to force them to release queer people from detention. But the second is more of a social safety net. Like queer immigrants who come to the U.S. often, if you think of a traditional immigrant or refugee story, people live with their community. They live with the people, with their families, with their nationalities, with their church community. And a lot of that is not available to our community because of internalized homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, and all of the things that make it really hard to find a social safety net in the United States. I wonder if I can ask you a question. We're domestically focused, and a lot of what we do is give free legal advice. And so we give free legal advice to everyone who calls. And a lot of those people are people in refugee camps asking for us to help them resettle quicker or to get out faster because it's so dangerous. And America has a part to play in this too, right? Like, we have created refugee camps on the other side of the Mexican border. Like, what can we do, civil service, the UN, the EU, what can we do to make those camps safer or to get people out faster?
This is true. What you said about people facing homophobia even here in their communities is even more true in many of the countries where LGBTQI refugees go first. Let's also make one thing clear. 90% of the refugees, of the displaced, are not in the rich countries, are not in the countries where those rights are more prevailing, are in countries where homophobia is often very prevalent. And not only homophobia, but threats to their lives. So we need two things essentially. We need more resources to help them, to give them special protection, to arrange for special protection context for them. But we also need more resettlement places. Last year, out of 26 million registered refugees around the world, 60,000 were resettled. We estimate that at least 1 to 2 million should be, not just people from this community, but women victims of violence, political refugees that suffer persecution even beyond their country. So this is why I was asking you about the importance of resettlement in the United States. Resettlement saves lives, and we need much more of that than we currently have.
Yes, and the European Union works together with the United Nations to try also to cooperate with governments of countries of transit, of countries of origin, to try and see whether we can support them in provide more humane treatment of migrants or refugees. It depends. Not all migrants are refugees, but to make sure that the way in which they're treated is respectful of their dignity as human beings. So thank you very much, Aaron, for being here and for having facilitated these conversations with Marvin and Regina. We really enjoyed talking to them.
It's my pleasure. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Filippo.
Thank you.